hello and welcome, ladies, gentlemen, students, administrators. Hi, Mom. We are here today for another, well, it's Valentine's themed, so there'll be much love in the room. Another Coaches Roundtable. I've invited a handful of coaches and directors, interchangeable in some circles, to talk about the things that are important to us. Joining me, an all-star cast, and Kevin Reap. Sorry, he was going to be the butt today, no matter what we did. So we'll kick it off with that. Of course, we have Sean Burney from St. Clair. We have Chad Smeltz from Harrisburg. We have my dear friend and a man I admire a ton, Kevin Reap from Missouri. And then there's this guy, the old guy. Let me kick this off with a question, and I'm going to ask Chad first. In this really tough, historically, period of time, right? We're in our most competitive season, and we're in our biggest recruiting season. What does the pie of your time look like? How are you splitting up your time?
When it comes to recruiting, things are always changing, right? And so as amateur changes come in through different leagues, regardless of how many leagues you're playing in. So, some universities are in a ton of different leagues. At our university, we're only in 2, but the whole point is that you have to adjust to what's going on in all of these different leagues, seeing what rules are changing, seeing what students are staying, what students are going. And it's tough. It makes all this information super important to work fast and try and get these students in and try and make sure that everything's set up well for that. And so it's a tough challenge. I have a lot of respect for universities, one, that have to try and recruit to be as competitive as possible, but 2, just the sheer amount of numbers of students, too, that are involved in a lot of these university programs. It's impressive as heck to get this done in a good amount of time.
So what's the pie look like? In this period of time, is it 20% of your time spent dealing with recruiting issues and talking to potential recruits and families and parents and visits? What's that percentage look like for recruiting? Is it the biggest piece?
So right now, actually, I'd say it's probably, so right now in the present time in February, it's usually a little bit on the lesser side, around I'd say 15 to 20%. As it starts getting closer to April, it starts becoming a big chunk of time. We have our coaches working on recruitment as well, so it's not just a one-person thing. But in terms of the logistics of, whether it be working on visas or just getting the entire thing through the university recruitment pipeline, it goes from 20% to something like 40 or 50, depending on how hectic the season is.
So in your day-to-day, and every day can be different, what's the biggest piece of your pie? If it's only 15% in recruiting, what's the biggest piece of your pie right now?
So surprisingly, even during COVID, events take up a lot of time. Event production, planning events, making sure things are going thoroughly. We're doing a big event later this month for schools and universities in Pennsylvania specifically to try and give back to the state. Building events is tough. It takes a lot of time, a lot of effort, a lot of people to run a successful event, and making sure that you're doing it the right way, especially during COVID when things are all online, and trying to make it as seamless as possible.
So, Kevin, I'm kind of going to go to the same question for you, but I'm going to ask you to be much briefer than Chad was just now. What's your pie look like right now? What's your work life like?
Yeah, I would say I would agree with the recruiting. Right now, it's about 20% of the day, and that will certainly increase as we get closer to the summer. Right now, what I spend most of my time doing is current student engagement. So we've kind of shifted a little bit of our focus, still competing, obviously, in the games that we do, but trying to figure out a way to do some virtual programming for all of the Mizzou students who are not on campus or not able to participate in the normal activities that they would. So that's kind of what we're trying to use our program to do in the immediate short term.
So can I paraphrase that and just double check it? So right now, all universities need stuff. And departments and programs need a reason to matter and to contribute and want to contribute, right? Is that a big push, kind of?
Yeah, for sure.
Provide?
Exactly. Yeah, we are able, just with the nature of esports and what we do, to provide an immediate student engagement opportunity to our students. So we're trying to take advantage of that. And we're seeing success from that, and more students gravitate towards what we are doing while they're at home or not able to do what they do. So it's been special to see that.
Okay, so do we have a sense of what your pie is? The biggest piece is programs, 20% recruiting, and then just trying to just do meaningful stuff with the rest of your time?
It's budget season as well, so that's been the short one. Yeah.
Yeah, it is budget season. So, Sean, same kind of question. And everybody's built differently, right? While I do have some slight competitive jealousy, like, what? He's got 20% of his time? No, not really. What's your pie looking like?
So I'm a little bit different in that I also
teach a ton.
am a faculty member. Yeah. So that's probably the biggest chunk of my time is working on teaching, meetings with students. I'm the program coordinator as well. So when students have to add classes, drop classes, stuff like that, I'm the one they go to. So that's probably the biggest chunk of my time, actually. But I'm fortunate that the administration here has seen that and has seen that we're doing a lot of work. And so they've granted me some extra helping hands. So we recently brought on board an assistant director, and then we have a production coordinator as well. So luckily I've got 2 very capable staff members on board, along with a full coaching staff. We have 8 head coaches at the school for each of our varsity teams, as well as a handful of assistant coaches. So we've got a big staff, and a lot of my time on the varsity side just goes to managing those people. I'm not necessarily hands-on in any particular aspect, although I will jump in when need be or when there's a fire to get put out. But in general, it's more a lot of my time is teaching, and a lot of time is managing the department in general and overseeing those staff members.
Very, very good. So I'm looking up your Rate My Professor right now. All right, respect. Some chili peppers there, as I would expect. Okay, sorry. Let's continue. So, Kevin, we were talking about questions, just things that are interesting. And the reason I asked that, honestly, is just kind of an awareness check to just. It's nice to hear, for me at least, that there are things you want to spend more time on. There are things that you're forced to spend time on, that you've kind of got a plan going here or there. It's helpful. It's inspiring in many ways to kind of go, oh yeah, okay, I like what Chad's doing there. What about you? Questions? I said bring some questions this time. Don't be lollygaggers here. You had a Kevin question?
Yeah, so you brought up the academics from Sean's end, and that's something that intrigues me because at the University of Missouri, esports was we brought it to the table 2 years ago, and from that standpoint, it was competitive. That's how the university saw it, and that's what we have done for the last 2 years. But I think there's another tremendous piece to what we're doing, and that is the curriculum that you can build around the academics. So I know I've pointed to Sean's work to my own administration just to say there are success stories. So Sean, I'd love to hear maybe one specific story of a student who has gone through the program, received a degree, and then has gone into the professional space, because I think those stories of real people being impacted by the educational opportunities within esports, I think that really sells how big this can be.
And bonus points if you invoke the name of Danner. So.
Well, Danners is a big one. So Danners, I've actually known him since about 2012. He started volunteering for me before I got into collegiate esports. But when we were running events, he volunteered jumping on to do commentary for League of Legends. And he kind of just stuck with us for a long time. And eventually I kind of suggested to him, like, why don't you take this program we're doing and like round yourself out, polish your skills a little bit, and then we'll see where that goes. And while he was a student in the program, he just took it upon himself to basically revamp our whole broadcasting department. And now he's kind of running it as basically the lead manager of that department. So seeing him develop those skills in the classroom and then taking them and applying them immediately to varsity in the evenings. And basically he just graduated in December, and now he's running the department. I'm hoping by the spring we might be able to bring him on full time. The other 3 names I'll bring, and again, they're still broadcasting, but we've got Mike, Impulse, Yeti, and Preston. They started as students just last year. They're in their 4th semester now, and they're already doing Valorant Pro Tour events, broadcasting them. Yeti and Preston working as observers, and Mike is doing a lot of the production or the producing those broadcasts. They're working through Nerd Street Gamers to do that. So that's pretty cool that just even in with 3 semesters of education under their belt, they're able to take that and apply it to get paid opportunities out in the field. So those are probably the 3 really strong examples. But on top of that, we've got, Danner's definitely working for us as well. And on top of that, Chris Funston, which I mentioned before, we hired him just in December to come on as an assistant director. He showed a lot of promise in the summer coming on as a volunteer and really grinded his way to carving out a role for himself. So when you guys were mentioning 20% recruiting, basically that was one of the things that for me, I was never able to tackle very well. And I was always kind of upset with that, but I was able to bring Chris on board, and he's been really the one that's developing that side of our organization. So we're going out and doing active recruiting for the first time in 4 years, essentially. So we've got recruits from the US and out west in Canada, and we've brought a couple from out east as well. So that's been a huge value for the program.
That's good. Did you get your answer there, Kevin?
I think so. That was perfect.
Is there a follow-up? Let me ask you, tell me why you asked that question. That's interesting.
Well, I think that what we're doing is, I keep going back to the competition. I think that that's how people see this right now. But when you look at a traditional sport like a football, sure, it's the product on the field is a big deal. It's why people are there. But there's so many jobs that surround it, and I think that that helps raise the entire industry. So it's going to happen in collegiate esports, and I think that schools are, if they're able to turn this into curriculum, and maybe it's not a 4-year degree, maybe it's a 2-year degree or a certificate, but I think those opportunities will catch the eye of the high school students that might not be as good at these games as they want to be pro, but they love gaming and they want to be a part of this industry. And now jobs exist for that. So why can't the educational opportunities exist to plug those students into those?
It's an interesting one, because some places push back against making it an academic thing, and I'll invoke the name of Mark Cuban specifically, who is often quoted. He's never accepted that he did this, but so many people have given it to him, that it's a mistake to make money in the development of your company, right? You don't turn a profit, because then you establish what you're worth. And that gets applied sometimes in the university world. Well, don't establish how many students you equal, or you'll fall into the hierarchy and you'll have a specific value, right? There's so much value in potential. I kind of want to roll this into a question for Chad, actually, which is, you guys came forward with and built a mega program out of the desire to do something massive, right? So there's a lot of speculation and a lot of investment, with the idea of bringing in lots of partners. I mean, you and I famously had a conversation about jerseys way back when. Where were we? In Des Moines or something like that, just talking about issues with jerseys, and whether, because you had this opportunity, especially after national championship, to really kind of see this. So my question to you is: are you getting pressure to develop like a specific academic funnel that's going to bring in X number of students to do a very specific kind of degree?
So I'd say it's specific in the sense that, so we also have a bachelor's in esports education and management in that sense, but there isn't any pressure to have a direct funnel in on that. Like, we need to have X or Y amount of students, we need to bring this exact amount of money, or else the program is succeeding or failing in that way. However, as time goes on and these programs are built out, it's like, okay, well, what do the sponsors look like? What are we bringing in? And one question that I want to ask you guys, because I'm super curious about it, is when you talk to sponsors, or when you talk about broadcast specifically, because that's something that we've brought up, what do you do regarding broadcast schedules? And when they talk to you, how many games can we expect a week or a month? Those are the hardest questions that I have, because it's depending on the game developer, it's what do you tell them when you yourself don't even know half the time? So it's not exactly the exact amount of money that gives me the hardship. It's having that specific conversation with multiple different sponsors, because sometimes it's almost impossible to have, it feels like.
Well, yeah, what are the deliverables, right? I can answer that, and I think these guys can too. Sean especially, who does a ton of work. Every time I watch his streams, which is regularly, because my phone buzzes every 7 minutes telling me that St. Clair's live. Or running a rerun. It's awesome. But the fact that Subway, is on there, I'm just like, dang him, he's that son of a. But here's what I can say is that we typically guarantee low minimums. So one of the things that we do in a lot of our broadcast is top 5 and player of the game, which are paid. They're a sponsored segment. Well, we promise. I think the contract says 30 a semester. We deliver more like 100 to 120, depending on what's happening in our games. We intentionally undercommit so that we can outperform. And honestly, we don't create a menu of what things cost. We have conversations with partners that can provide value back to the university. That's not just dollar value, but value to the students. Is there value in us assembling this? Is there value in having a student who's responsible for the live edit during the broadcast? And what does that experience look like? If it's worth doing, then we kind of ask the question, well, make us an offer. What's it worth to you? And then we negotiate kind of from that point. But we don't send, well, it's going to be $10,000, and a box of cookies for us to do X. We look for the right partners, and then we find the right middle, if that makes sense. I don't know. Did I answer your question at all? We undersell a lot of those, and typically in broadcasts, we'll say we'll do 8 2-hour broadcasts. Somewhere between an hour and 40 minutes and 2 hours. Often we'll go over in that, which overperform. But we'll commit to a certain number of days if we're doing a specialized broadcast for somebody.
You did answer, but I would probably ask for 2 boxes of Girl Scout cookies instead of 1.
They usually provide more. So, Sean, for you guys, how do you manage the expectation of money coming into a program related to your sponsorships?
I don't think we ever specifically sell like an amount of content on streams or anything like that, and I think maybe that's where we don't get ourselves into any trouble because we don't set that expectation. We will talk about what the past has looked like, what we've done in the past, and talk about how over time we plan to continue to ramp up as we've done the last couple of years. But we don't specifically guarantee a certain number of broadcasts or anything like that. As everybody knows, it varies dramatically from sometimes week to week. This week, I think we're planning to have something like 40 hours of broadcasting, which is absolutely insane. But other weeks, if you went back
only
to
40?
The first week of January.
What are you even doing?
Yeah, only 40. I think Dan is allowed to get paid for 24 by his contract, so that'll be an interesting conversation to have. But like some weeks or the summer, for example, we don't do a ton of broadcasting in the summer. We typically treat July and August as kind of like an off season for our teams. So we don't have a ton of broadcasting going on. So it does vary, but I think, when we put together a sponsorship package, which we're actually in the process of doing right now, we haven't really revamped our sponsorship package since 2017 or 2018. So we don't necessarily promise a certain number, but we sell the whole program as one big package. So we talk about not only the broadcasting, but we talk about all of our different varsity teams, the different accomplishments they've had. We talk about our facilities, both the existing ones and the upcoming facilities, and then we talk about our academic program and our club, and we sell it all as one big package. And typically, the sponsors are happy to see all of the different ways that they'll be contributing to the growth of what we're doing on campus.
Gotcha. That's really interesting. And Chad, I don't know if that gets to the heart of your question. We tend to do some really specific things tied to broadcast inventory, right? So we giggle about it all the time, but right, the Doc's keys to the game, right? Just find a thing you can, whatever, right? We have sponsors who love that kind of reference to football, right? And so they want their name on those types of things. And most of the time, the keys are it's a little secret, procedurally generated or they're not for that game. They're just general thoughts about the game. But so Kevin, question to you. Oh, and Alex, if you could F6 this for us, I think that this group, there's enough love that we can. There we go. I appreciate that. That's beautiful. How do you manage these sponsorships and such? Oh, we're Kevinless.
I muted myself. I'm so sorry. I'm here.
You're fine.
Mistake. I was trying not to make noise. When we first, our first,
He was doing his
sponsor-
breathing exercises.
That's what it was. So we realized that we have a large space on campus, a 5,000 square foot facility, and we thought that would be a good opportunity to provide to a potential company as the naming rights for that space for a temporary amount of years. And that is not something that the university has done before. And it's one of many things on a list that we have tried to do that the university has not done before, which is one of the fun things about starting an initiative like this. But so we were able to sell the naming rights to our facility. It's the MSI training facility. And then in addition to that, like the other guy said, I think so much of what this is, we can't really point to large scale television viewership. And we really don't know what the future is going to look like as far as scheduling. You look at a football schedule, they have them 10 years out. So we can't really do that yet. So a lot of what we have to sell is our vision for what this will be in the future, the impact that we have today, and where we think this is all going to go. And we've been fortunate enough to find corporate sponsors who see that. And I think there's more and more that will come on board. And when we talk to a sponsor, we really want to make sure that because there's not those gigantic numbers to point to yet, we want to make sure that we have kind of a mutual understanding of where the space is, what everybody's goals are, and then how we can work together to make that happen. So sure, naming a space is more of a traditional route for a sponsorship or giving call outs on social media or on streams. But then we also want to go a step further and maybe like a live esports event someday could be sponsored by some company that would want to get involved.
That's a good point. And just paying tribute to those folks, like my favorite beverage, Pepsi Zero Sugar. Zero sugar, all the flavor. Chad, if how does this? I mean, honestly, like what do you do? I mean, or even what do you do, or what do you continue to struggle with relative to that? Because it's weird. There's no playbook, and we don't have. What we could have, and Learfield IMG that makes all those decisions for us, except they really don't understand our space yet, right? And what's even sellable. But yeah, back to my initial question: what do you do, or what keeps you maybe not up at night, but you get my idea.
Yeah, I think for me, it's been a mixture of so the day-to-day broadcast throughout the month for all of our leagues and things like that, and that was the specific one that I was thinking of when I asked the question. But then going further and talking about events, since we try and run a lot of events, when you're talking to the game developer and you might say like, hey, can we have this on local news, our local TV?
Oh, right,
Some
right.
developers might say like, yeah, absolutely, you can do that. And others might say, well, no, hold up, what are you talking about there? And so how do you navigate those conversations where the same tournament might have multiple different games and one developer is okay, one's not? What does that look like, and how can you get them to work on more initiatives in the long term, maybe, and not just for that event, is what I was thinking too.
Well, and to your point, I mean, 10 years ago, there was a lot more competition for on-air broadcasting, but most of us could, walk down to our local TV station with we wouldn't do it with tapes anymore. We just email it to them with 2 hours of content, and they're hungry enough for stuff. There are a lot of stations who'd put that on, especially straight to air local digital, right? Whatever that your 24-hour version is of your local affiliate, they have their second channel or their third channel. They're looking for those opportunities. But Riot, and Blizzard and Epic Psyonix has in there, you can't put this on TV without permission, right? So it's those kind of broadcast rights get kind of squirrely. I mean, we see it happen, but it's just not for anybody to say, I'm going to do a Rocket League tournament on local TV today. Yeah, that's cool. Sean, you can ask a question.
Oh, I don't even know if I have one right now. I guess maybe I'd like to hear like processes, because I guess especially Harrisburg, you guys are doing amazing things with recruiting. Like, what is your process? So if you had to kind of nail it down into like a brief step, like a step-by-step guide, recruiting for dummies, what would that look like for you guys?
Ooh, I like.
Well, I have to say, I have to give massive amounts of credits to our head coaches. So X Special for League of Legends and Joe Meister for Overwatch. They're doing 95% of the legwork when it comes to that. They obviously have a very specific process that works for them. So I don't want to speak for them word for word and say like this is exactly what each one of them does because obviously, I'm a part of that, but I'm not doing it word for word with them. So that being said, they are vigilant all year. Like we're competing, they're paying attention to the next week's match and stuff, but they're constantly talking to students 24/7, like regardless of the position in the game that they're looking for. They're talking to pretty much any student who has a high level interest and talking to them way before the recruitment process even starts. So if we're looking for fall 2021, they're looking probably starting in the next couple of weeks and saying like, okay, I want to get to know the students that are interested in our program. Let's reach out to a bunch of different students and see what that legwork looks like. And to their credit, that process takes a long time. They're looking at 6 months to make sure that the students fit in education-wise, to make sure they fit in personality-wise with the team and the program, and then obviously come tryout time, making sure skill-wise they line up with what the team's looking to do.
Well, and asking the question, Western Pennsylvania, can you even?
Yeah,
right?
So, from our point of view, I mean, there's plenty of schools that are all over the place in different areas like that. So that part's not too bad.
That's true. So, I mean, so I'll ask you to be specific. Say your recruiting pipeline, and you may have to guess at this, but guess away. How many students would you say are in this pool of from we've been introduced and hey, maybe there's an opportunity here, all the way to committed already. We know we've got a spot. How big is that population, say per game?
So usually the two coaches together between two games are usually reaching out and talking to about 100 students at any given time. But when you combine like the open application process with all of the students who have a chance just to kind of go in, it's 4 digits from there. And that's why that process takes so dang long.
Okay. Sean,
I actually have a follow-up question.
Yeah, hit him.
Okay, so like I mentioned before, we're starting to do more active recruiting than we've ever done before. So the first 2-3 years of the program, it was more so passive. So like you said, an open application or just looking around on campus. Who's already here? Or do we have any high-level players already on campus? So now we're starting to look beyond our traditional catchment area, looking outside and seeing if anybody would be willing to move, to Windsor of all places to play esports, right? So the one thing that we're running into now that we're doing this is that we're having a hard time. I don't even know how to put this necessarily, but some of the students that are on the existing teams start getting maybe jealous of us having those conversations. Or they start getting too nervous about losing their spot. And we're trying to have that conversation like, look, we're always going to be recruiting because our goal is to be, the best team we can be. You've got a shot at keeping your spot here on the team. Like we're having a hard time having those conversations and, making sure that we don't absolutely just destroy somebody's ego when we go out and recruit somebody and, they give up halfway through the season or something, like that's what we're running into, and I'm wondering how you deal with that problem.
It's the meme of boyfriend turning around, current starting support, top 500 support, right? Kind of a deal.
I'll be completely blunt. It is always going to be an issue no matter what. So you are 100% spot on with that. Regardless of the level that you're playing at in any game, I think there's always going to be that sense of like, am I going to be replaced? What's going to be happening next semester? Like, what's that look like for me? And for us, we knew that was, like I said, you're always going to be recruiting, so that's always going to be a thing. And so what I did, and what the coaches do is, I have conversations with the students constantly about like how to take these things and how to work around it, and how to make it make it be competitive in the sense that like, instead of looking at it as a negative, they should turn it around and use it as a positive. Because when a coach sees that you're still passionate about the game and you're still trying, maybe you even get benched. We had one student in particular, Hunter Rogers, who was benched after winning the national championship.
Yeah.
And that was brutal for him. And I talked to him extensively about it and said, like, hey, I know this is hard, but like, let's turn this around and see what you can do with that. And then he came back and continued to play even after that. And that said a lot about him initially. So that's the kind of thing that I was trying to foster. And it's really hard to do across a major group of students. But over time, I think students start to get it. And the more students that get it, it kind of has an effect on the other students as well.
That's amazing about Hunter, because I've met Hunter a couple of times when we were there, and certainly when we were in Texas when you guys won it. And he's a guy who wears his heart on his sleeve. I mean, you can tell how he feels at every moment, right? And I struggle with this, but when we try to make things happy, we don't want to hurt people's feelings, but we try to make things happy and comfortable. Sometimes we rob our players from the opportunity for a much more valuable experience because of the struggle than we do by trying to prevent the struggle, right? We deal with that here. We're recruiting players, this coming season that in many cases, are in a different category than players that are here now, and we have to be sensitive to that. But at the same time, for us, Sean, it's partly about making sure that they understand that that this is. We build our teams deep intentionally, right? So that there's a place to go. It's if we have a starting tank in Overwatch and a top 500 tank comes in, it doesn't mean that person is off the team, but it does mean that their role and their responsibility does change a little bit. But they're not gone. We're still making investments in people. How are you doing this, Kevin?
Well, that's exactly how we have tried to handle that, because in our first year, we recruited exactly how many students we've needed. We're only in our second year, so we haven't had much of a need yet to fill roles that are now vacant because of a student graduating. That's going to get more difficult as the years continue to move on. So one thing that we've tried to do in our second year, we added another League of Legends and Rocket League team, so that allows us the flexibility to move some people around. I think, as Chad said, how the students react to this aspect of the collegiate esports landscape is important. I care about, when I'm recruiting a student, I want to make sure that they're teachable, that they are good students academically, that they're going to be driven to succeed and graduate and go to class every day. But when they get here, we still want to make sure that they are capable of doing everything that they're here for, but then also that they can handle the new aspects of competition as well. And that's going to include knowing that we're recruiting in the back end and that there might be a top 500 tank coming into school next year. And I want my students to see that as an opportunity for them to get better and to maintain the advantage that they have. And if they don't, figure out why they don't and turn it into an opportunity. Because if they can't do that, then it does say a lot about how they are as a competitive player on our team.
Okay, well, so let me throw out a question to you, unless you guys are chomping at the bit with one. Okay,
you're up, Doc.
Here we go. So we all put on a happy face, and nothing messes us up, but we're all tilted by something, and I want to know what it is. The thing that can tilt me the fastest, and maybe there's a theme here, is on Twitter, with a out of the blue, I don't know this person, and there's this rant, and I'm named, or the school's named, or something like that. So maybe the theme of this question is, what's something you'd like to be able to overcome professionally? Mine is chippy. Is chippy people I've never met before making personal or program attacks or attacking our players. And you may not know this about me, but I can write a pretty good letter, and it just sends me into Johnny letter mode. I'm like, oh, we'll see about that, right? And I'll just start working on it. What about you? And I'll throw this to Chad first.
What tilts me?
Professionally, what tilts you?
Professionally, the thing is, generally speaking, I have so much patience for students that I don't tilt, but when I do tilt, it's bad. So it's just like, oh my gosh. So normally it's like when I tell students like, hey, like I'm really busy with something right now, or like today's not the day to like, because they like joking around with me a lot, and most of the time I'll fire right back at them, but every once in a while I'm like, hey, like today's not the day, like I'm having a really bad day, and most students will just immediately cut off because they know like, okay, like I respect that, and then every once in a while some student will double down and they'll be like, oh no, this is a great time to double down. And that's what I tell the most, where I'm just like, please, like I just need a tiny bit of space. I'm happy to help you after, but like right this second, I just can't right now. And that's probably the only time that I feel like that sense of tilt where I'm just like, oh gosh.
Kevin?
I would have to say it's more from the business side. The amount of this is a large industry that's growing. It has a lot of attention, and I think because of that, some people are trying to make as much money as quickly as possible, and there's not a lot of authenticity or maybe even value provided in exchange for that. I'm not calling out anybody, but we all get contacted by a handful of companies and people.
Sure?
I'm not, I promise. But I think it would be best for the entire collegiate space if we grow this thing as it needs to grow, and we try to make sure that from a financial sense, the sponsorships and the companies that we're working with and the promises and deals that we're making make sense for where we're at right now. And maybe one day they'll be as big as some people say they will or claim that they are. But until then, I think we're doing more harm than good sometimes when we pretend like what we have is much, much greater and larger than it is, if that makes sense.
Yeah. There's a lot of exaggeration on that. I'm reminded that that this year is about new tournament organizers. Again, 19-year-old new CEOs of brand new companies. Last year it was recruiting opportunities. The year before it was silver League of Legends coaches. So.
Or how about, Doc, how about the email you got a little while ago? I got the same one asking you if you needed help to learn how to do broadcasting at your school.
Just Google somebody before you, just learn five seconds so you could figure stuff out. Yeah.
Legwork to at least try and sell what you're doing. That's impressive to me, where it's almost so bad where you're just like, should I be offended or should I just be like amazed?
Yeah.
This? Like, should I be tilted? I don't know.
Follow-up question to each of you, and then I want to go to Sean's tilt. Do you have a canned response? I can't talk to you right now. That you'll copy paste into an email if you need to?
I honestly just delete like that one when it came through, because it came to me a day after it came to you. So I saw it come, and at first I was like a little bit jealous. I was like, oh, why did Doc get this email and not me? But then the next day it came in, and I was like, okay, cool, and I instantly deleted it. I didn't even bother to respond. I'm just, and it's probably the same for all of you. I don't have the patience for it. I get like a couple hundred emails every few days. Like I don't have the ability to clean my inbox on a daily basis. So they pile up for 2-3 days, clean them all out, pile up for 2-3 days, clean them all out. But it's just so many like that. I don't have the patience to respond to everybody. So some of that kind of stuff just gets deleted. It's like if you didn't even do the research into us before sending it, I'm not even going to give you the time to respond. If it's an honest mistake, I might respond. But in those ones, it's really obvious.
So does that tilt you? Is that your tilt?
It does. Yeah, it does. I don't know if that's my tilt. If I'm going to look at an esports kind of business tilt, I guess, I think the biggest one for me would be you've got so many different schools or people, they're all working on the same level that are just bickering amongst each other, whereas like the real problems are a lot bigger typically, and that's what maybe is my biggest tilt when I see those kind of fights going on. And it's like, guys, we're on the exact same side here. Like, let's try to work together and grow this thing. I think a lot of people look at esports, varsity esports, as being, at this point, some people are starting to think, oh, it's really well established. But when you really look at the numbers, it's not well established at all. How many schools are there in North America? 4,000 schools, and maybe you have 400 that have varsity program in some capacity. We're at 10%. Like, we're not well established at all at this point. We're just getting started. So there's so much room for growth, and it's not really worth it at this stage to have such fierce competition. And fierce competition in League of Legends or Overwatch or whatever is absolutely fine. I'm talking about fierce competition between like programs fighting each other over things, or different tournament organizers fighting each other. Like, no, we have our schedule on Tuesdays. No, we get to have Tuesday Rocket League, whatever. Like, come on, work together. I started seeing a few examples of that in the fall where some organizers were working together a bit to align schedules and that kind of thing. But it still does happen where, they just want to kind of beat everybody else down to just be the last one standing. And I don't really like that mentality.
No, I mean, I think that in a lot of cases, the tournament organizers overvalue their role, but essentially we are the consumers, right? And we'll choose those outlets that provide the most value to our students. At least for me, I'm not looking for any one, organization to provide everything we're possibly going to need. And to be the winner, no, we're looking at the calendar going, that makes sense for us. Oh, no, we can't have 3 of those on the same night, so we probably should do a different one than that, right? It's at the end of the day, I joke about this all the time. The Hall of Fame for college esports directors is going to be built by people who can schedule, right? It's not wins and losses. It's no. We maintain 10 scrims a week and 8 competitions. What? How did you do that? Right. That's what's really amazing. Yeah. So I'll throw this out. Other questions? I mean, I could ask you guys things all day, but what else is on your mind lately that this group might chime in on?
I've got one. Okay, so and this is more game specific, but I think I think I'm correct. You guys both have Overwatch teams, right? Both schools, Overwatch team, all 3 Overwatch. Yeah, everybody here's got an Overwatch team. So, what do you? And this is more like down into the wheel. But what's happening with Overwatch, right? Like, it's traditionally been like the last couple of years. Like probably I'd argue and say the number 2, maybe number 3, collegiate esport. What's going to happen in the next couple of years, especially with seemingly Overwatch 2 being delayed to next year, and a lot of people were thinking it was going to be this year.
Well, I would say that Kevin and I, I think there's a miscount. We can't really figure out in the eFuse standings who's really on top. I don't know, it was a misprint or something. But Chad, you probably have the most professional world connections. Do you want to speculate for us?
Speculating what gets me in trouble.
Well, does speculating get you in trouble, or does here's what I'd like to see masked as maybe I know?
I'll be completely honest about it. So with Overwatch, it's challenging, right? Because there's multiple different factors at play than just collegiate Overwatch being insular. And so I think, for example, like you said, Overwatch 2 was one of these points. But then for another example, it's like, how's the Overwatch League doing? What's going on with the geolocation of the Overwatch League? Is that still a thing with COVID, or what does that look like now that the business is being affected? Because this all has a trickle down in terms of what goes on with collegiate Overwatch. And so that's why it's really tough to just try and look at it from this top-down view and say, okay, how can I, at my program or my school, since we all have Overwatch teams, make sure that we're doing our due diligence and continuing what the Overwatch program looks like and how it's going to look like even in a year or two. TESPA just changed up, obviously, right, too? And so there's just so many moving parts. And that's inherently scary no matter what esport you're talking about, because you have to make sure that you're constantly readdressing and making the right decisions. And Overwatch, right now, there's a little bit of a question mark, and that's uncomfortable. That's just honestly uncomfortable for a lot of programs at face value. And so that's the part that I think sometimes people don't want to talk about. It's because they don't want to acknowledge it, and they just kind of hope that it just works out. And it's okay to ask these questions, in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, and we got to keep in mind, this is Blizzard Activision we're talking about here, right? We went from, having a very strong, and I know Sean and I had squads that played Heroes of the Storm, to, oh, by the way, we're not going to do that anymore. And all of a sudden, the entire, competitive structure, the professional structure just disappeared, right? So it is a company that can just go, we're going to do something different and not worry as much about what that competitive scene looks like. I would bet, though, if I were a betting person, there is so much invested especially recently with the new expansion of these teams, they have to have those folks in mind, because for more than a year now, everything that everything that TESPA wanted to do had to flow through two different legal departments, Blizzard Legal, and then first right of refusal, came from OWL. Say, no, you can't play on that day, or no, you can't do these elements, or no, you can't use our observer tool, right? I mean, really, it was they ruled the roost for that. I've got to believe that that's still part of what's happening. I suspect that Overwatch 2 will become the competitive tool, for the game. That's my guess. Kevin?
I think this is a big moment for esports, because it's not the first time this has happened. Heroes of the Storm actually obviously disappeared.
He's going to 30,000 feet here. He's going to.
No. I think this is going to be. It's a big moment because a lot of schools have invested into it, but then so has the owner of the Patriots and the owner of the Los Angeles Rams. And that way it's different than Heroes of the Storm. Now there are some legitimate, some hotshots in the game. So I think the question becomes, what does happen? I think you're right. I said the same thing this morning in a different conversation, that a ton has been invested into this. And I think that would, I would think, put a fire under Blizzard to kind of move some of these things forward. But Overwatch 2, 2022, that's so far ways away. And it's unfortunate. I mean, I have more hours in Overwatch than any other game. I love it more than anything. And I would love nothing more for it to continue and grow bigger than we ever saw it. And I think it can and should. But it'll be interesting to sit back and kind of watch how this is handled, because a lot of schools I would say Overwatch is probably number 1 or 2, I would imagine, right behind League of Legends. So that's just the collegiate scene. So there's a lot of money involved.
Well, so to be sensitive with everybody's time, we'll kind of wrap up on this question, and it's an interesting one. Now, here are the rules. You cannot name any other person or school on this call right now, right? You have to choose somebody else. But I want you to project forward your children. For me, it'll have to be my grandchildren, because my kids are all grown. But again, Great Depression, we'll go back over that. But right now, name a program that you would love for any of your children to participate in. Just one that you hold in high esteem, that you would feel comfortable, to be a good experience. Name a school, a program, a director, however you want to wrap that up. Not your own and not anybody here. That's the rule. That you'd feel comfortable with. Someone you have esteem for.
Sure, I can start if that's all right.
Okay.
So for program, it would be the former director, Mr. Callum Fletcher at Illinois Wesleyan. I think he set up a really, really good program, and he just only recently left, as of a week or two ago. But in talking to him and kind of just asking him questions and him doing the same for me, I have a lot of respect for what he's built there and what he started, and how he's also, going into his next thing and helping Illinois Wesleyan get their next director, because he cares so much about the program. We've had students come from Illinois Wesleyan to ours, and they've only said good things. And everything I see from it seems positive. So I would trust my kid with Callum Fletcher, but even in the program without him, they would do a wonderful job. I'm
pretty sure you just sneaky sidestep the question, because he's not there anymore. So you can't offend anybody by, all right, I don't know. They're tabulating to see if we'll accept that as an answer. Sean, what about you?
I think somebody I'd go with is maybe Dana Hustet, formerly Grandview, now somewhere down in Florida. I don't even know. Florida Tech, right? I think that'd be a cool opportunity. If my kid was that age right now, and I said, okay, you can't come to my school because that would just be too biased, go somewhere else. I guess that'd be the conversation. I don't know. That might be a good option, because you'd get to go there and maybe build something from the ground up with her. And she obviously did a wonderful job with Grandview. So I think that'd be a pretty cool opportunity to get in on the ground floor at a brand new school, building a varsity program with somebody. And she's one of the best to do it. So.
And walk to the beach. Yeah, there's so much good stuff going on there. Yep. What about you, Kevin?
I got to go with Adamantor, of course. My kids are playing for Adamantor. I love Adam. Wherever he's at. Right now he's at Aquinas. I think he does a phenomenal job, and I love hanging out with him whenever we get the chance. As far as program goes, I'm learning more about Full Sail University. I didn't realize the school was a live events-focused school, and it seems like a pretty sweet place. So I'll throw Full Sail on there as a program. It looks pretty sweet.
Okay. That's a really good. There are a lot of folks that I could mention here, and I don't want to make a list because then I would mention AJ at Park, Eugene at Texas Wesleyan. I'm doing what I said I wasn't going to do. Let me pick Adler, Greg Adler. Every conversation I've had with him, I feel like he's got the right attitude, and he's the right level of low key, right? He can be serious when he needs to, but most of the time he's pretty chill. I mean, he doesn't fly off the handle like that Chad guy, where when people. No, I'm just messing. I would guess him. He's good. He's good enough. Okay, so we'll kind of get out of here. I think on that question to make enough time for folks. Maybe one quick haiku answer. 5 7. No, you don't have to do that. No.
I don't even know how to do an haiku.
No, I said haiku, and Kevin started taking off a shoe immediately so he could count. I think there are a lot of young directors who are watching this who don't have any support at all. We've all gotten to a position where we're getting a little bit more support, maybe not nearly as much as we can, but for you, what has provided what handing off what responsibilities has provided the most zen for you in your position as you've added people to your group? We'll start with Chad. What things have you been able to hand off that make you more effective because they lower your stress level?
So if students have a in-game related problem, I ask that they go to their coach first. They used to always try and come to me, come to mom, come to dad. But we kind of set up a line where it's like, hey, talk to your coach about it first. And, if there's a big problem beyond that, or if we have to put out a fire, I think like Sean said, then we can address that after. But handing off that responsibility to the coach made things a lot more seamless for both the players and the coach at the same time, and myself, obviously. So I think that was a good transition.
Awesome. Sean?
I'm going to go with the one you said, whoever is going to get into the Hall of Fame, it'll be the one that schedules the best. And if that's the case, then I don't think I'm going to get there because I've handed off a lot of that responsibility to Danners. It just seemed to be more seamless to align the scheduling with the broadcasting, right? Yeah. So with Dan overseeing that department, just made more sense. So that's been a huge, definitely a huge burden off my shoulders, and Dan's done an amazing job with it. Obviously, everybody pitches in. We do have, like I mentioned before, the 8 coaches, the head coaches, and it's up to them to kind of let us know what does the schedule look like for your game. So, we've got dedicated Discord channels for each team. That's like their schedule channel, and we want to see a pinned schedule. What does your weekly schedule look like? And that allows us to kind of source those, and Dan can kind of put them all into one big calendar. And, that way it seems to be kind of a system that works really well for us. And, that'd be a huge – if the schools that I hear when I hear a director has to not only be the director of the school, but also coach like 7 individual teams and put all the schedules together, but then also try to broadcast. I don't even understand how that would be possible to do at any like effective level. So I don't really understand that. And, my heart goes out to those people because I can't imagine having to schedule for, 7 or 8 teams. I'm lucky to have an individual scheduling for each team. So, if I have a problem with one game, I can have a discussion with one coach about it and we get it sorted out. But having to balance 8 schedules, 8 different teams in your head would be absolutely crazy. So that's probably the biggest thing that I've been able to kind of take off my plate and spread throughout the organization.
That's a good answer.
And it's been for the best.
Kevin?
Yeah, so we have a broadcasting team, journalism team, student engagement team, and then we have the competitive team with the coaches. So one thing we've been able to do within our second year is put students who are interested in those areas, we put them in charge, and then I meet with them on a weekly basis. So any issues that anybody in that team has goes to their team lead, and then we will address that whenever we meet every week. So that kind of puts any, unless it's a major fire, I don't know about it until we sit down and have our meeting, and then we can address it all then instead of at all hours of the day, every day of the week. So that has seemed to have worked significantly.
That's awesome. It's good. It's good to get some relief. Okay, this is a one-word final answer, and then we're going to say goodbye, and it's going to be very telling. The number of days that you don't wear university apparel, Chad, during the week. Number of days that you don't wear university. No, just on average. How many days a week do you not wear university apparel?
5.
Sean.
I'm probably at like 6. I've been at work from home since March.
What?
So, like I said, this has been the first. This is the second time this week I've worn my jacket, but otherwise I haven't worn it for months.
Okay, Kevin.
I would say 4 that I do not.
Alex, answer for me. 0. He's absolutely right. I'm in it every day. So, thank you guys so much.
Either you're wearing the same shirt over and over, or you've got a huge closet.
I have a lot of polos and about 4 of these jackets. So, thank you guys so much. It's so nice to be able to actually connect and talk about the things that we share. Everybody's program is different. It's doing different things. It's great in areas that we all aspire to. It's awesome to just connect, but it's also good to commiserate from time to time. And I hope that you'll enjoy a delicious, refreshing Pepsi Zero Cherry, zero sugar, all the flavor, and they're not actually sponsoring. Have a great week. Have a great Valentine's Day, and thanks a lot, guys.
Happy Valentine's Day, everybody. Later, y'all.